Hello everybody and welcome to the All Blacks Edition EP10, brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby opinion and predictions. And today we are going to be talking all things All Blacks, going through the All Blacks news and also looking forward at the rest of the season as well. And joining me this evening to do all of that is the one, the only Blues fan. Oh no, not the only Blues fan. There's lots of Blues fans. But how are you doing?
I could be the only Blues fan. Yes, I'm looking forward to today's show to provide a bit of light relief for myself after some stressful days. So let's get on and talk rugby and forget about the rest of the world.
Oh, okay. What, to forget about the rest of the world? So yes, we'll try and forget about the rest of the world. I've got some new software, folks, as well. So look, what I can do is I can do things like this. I can go over here and I can add in comments to the broadcast. So, for example, Christian said, "Hi, Ashwin." And now you can see Christian's comment on the live show. So if you have any comments during the show, questions during the show, please type them in either through YouTube or Periscope, and then we can put them on screen and have a chat about them as well. Clearly, please make them All Blacks related, rather than just the other week someone asked me if I've got a girlfriend or not. But we don't want to go there. Let's just keep it on the whole rugby kind of thing. And there's been a few bits of news, hasn't there, this week? Conrad Smith has retired from rugby, but he's staying in rugby.
Doesn't every rugby player do that these days?
Not all rugby players do that. I mean, in fact, the second rugby player isn't. So that's that we're going to talk about. But Conrad Smith going into coaching, and what kind of role would you expect him to go into? Or have you seen this? Have you seen the news clip already?
I've seen the news clip, but it's quite interesting when he was sort of talking about in the news article about, I was thinking of what area I could go into coaching, and it's just like defence. I mean, at the end of the day, I think one of the his key roles in the All Blacks, in terms of on the field, as in the centres, was the defensive patterns and defensive alignments. So, and he did a very good job of that, you'd have to say. So, I thought defence was a good place for him to start. Yeah,
defence or backs coach, not. I wouldn't try and get him involved in any sort of scrummaging or anything like that, especially scrums coach or anything. That makes a lot of sense, and good luck to him in POW, where he'll be doing that. So POW is obviously where he's been for the past two or three seasons now, whatever it is, a couple of seasons since the Rugby World Cup playing. So yeah,
3 seasons.
Sorry.
3 seasons.
3 seasons, wow, or 3.5 seasons, because obviously the Rugby World Cup takes the first half of that first season in Europe. So 3 seasons at POW, and then he's moving over into the coaching role there, which shouldn't be any. So all the best, Mr. Smith. Obviously, you watch the show every single week, and we no doubt. So do drop us a line, and if you want to have an interview, we're up for having a chat. If you want to join us and talk defensive structures. So Conrad, give us a drop us a bell.
Drop us a bell. It raises an interesting point. I know we're going through news, but it's sort of like interesting how we, players at that top level sort of basically jumping into top level coaching. Without sort of the traditional old, going back many years now, I suppose, in terms of working your way up through the club structure. Into your obviously talking here from a New Zealand perspective, but club structures to your provincial structure, Super Rugby, etc., etc. It's now basically you stop playing and you're a coach for a top side.
I think it depends, doesn't it, a lot on the player and also and I kind of guess what their ambitions are. If you look at someone like Ronan Nagara, for example, he was very conscious about not sort of jumping in too high too quickly, and started off just as purely as a kicking coach at Racing Metro before sort of working his way up the ranks internally within that club structure, and then obviously coming over to the Crusaders. Lots of fantastic photos, fantastic sort of memes, whatever how you're supposed to say it, at the time when obviously we had Dan Carter joining Racing Metro, or Racing 92, and finding that Ronan O'Gara was going to be his kicking coach, which everything I've heard about Rog as a coach has been positive. So we may laugh a bit about him being the kicking coach for Dan, but maybe he did give Dan some good insights and work well with him. We'll never know. Let's be honest.
Taught him everything he knew.
Sorry. Whereas other coaches, you'll see them going. It's interesting to see someone like Alex Corbisiero, for example, has he went on a sabbatical, and that ended up being his retirement because he ended up getting a media gig in the States with CBS, I think it is. But one of the things he's now moved into, that he's sort of doing on the side, is being a sort of specialist scrum coach, clinic, advisor, however you want to put it. He was working with one of the Major League Rugby teams there, for example, etc. So, yeah, there are other guys who've sort of taken a different, or maybe a slightly less high-profile way into coaching. Who knows where that'll take Alex, and whether he'll end up being sort of a full-time coach, or whether he'll keep his media gig and then just sort of do the a bit like I've gone blank as South African, who seemed to do a lot of could go in as a consultant for a few months and then drop back out again. I don't know whether we'll see Alex do that kind of stuff. Sorry,
P Diddy,
Puff Daddy. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Peter de Villiers.
No, not Peter de Villiers. The guy who used to be at Saracens and then went back to South Africa. He worked with Conor O'Shea in Italy for a short while, and has also worked with South Africa as well as a consultant. Anyway, as you say, we digress somewhat.
And in terms of Conrad, lawyer at Russell McVeigh, or carry on doing some rugby fun stuff.
Because
not saying that life at Russell McVeigh is not fun.
He's a qualified lawyer, isn't he?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. One of the things you can't coach, the top 6 inches.
Well, maybe we'll see that. Steve for Quins, thank you. Yeah, Ventnor is the person I was talking about, who's joining in on Periscope. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Good to have you here. So, yeah, and it's interesting that he's off to do that. Luke McAllister, another All Black, has announced his retirement as well, moving back to the, as he said in his Instagram post, moving back to the best city in the world. So, do you know where he's retiring to?
Auckland, of course.
He's an Auckland boy, absolutely. So he's retiring to Toulouse.
Toulouse, yeah.
Which
traffic's obviously a lot better in Toulouse, isn't it? Hey.
Well, it's interesting actually. Toulouse is a bit of an industrial town in France. It's where they put together the Airbus aeroplanes, for example. So yeah, a bit of French Riviera or Toulouse. I'd have chosen the French Riviera, to be honest with you. But clearly, he obviously played for Toulouse for a while and has set up some family businesses there because that's what he's going to go do. And he said he'll be a bit of a tourist travelling around some of the Rugby 10s and Rugby 7s competitions around the world. So it looks like he fancies gallivanting for a little bit, as well as running his various family businesses. So look out for him at various...
You've got me curious now in terms of what his family businesses are. I really didn't sort of read him as being a business owner.
I'll be honest, it didn't say. So I'm not sure what kind of businesses Luke McAllister's into. If anyone's watching who knows, then drop us a comment and let us know what Luke McAllister gets up to on the business front. I've got no idea what those are over in. Well, I'm assuming they're going to be in France, considering he's going to move and live in.
Considering staying over there, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's interesting with Luke McAllister. It's sort of like you have to wonder whether it's someone that didn't quite fulfill his potential at in the international jersey.
Yeah, he never got to be first. He was always kind of not quite first choice, wasn't he? And hence why.
Yep. And they tried to sort of manufacture him into like an option in the back line, second five, but never really sort of, never really worked.
But he's had a plentiful, successful career overseas. Obviously, came back and played a couple of tried to break into the Rugby World Cup squad. Didn't work out, and so went back overseas again as well. So yes, that's. We're just going to take now a quick beer break. So I've got my Tuatara beer and my Bottlepop. So yeah, if you want to get a Bottlepops for the perfect item for the All Blacks fan who has everything, because basically what it does is this.
What a brilliant break! Try coming up, and the All Blacks are in.
And there we go. And you have an open bottle of beer. Fantastic. So a little quote and a bottle of beer. What more can you ask for?
Where to get it?
Pardon?
Where to get it?
Where to get it? You can get it down below on YouTube. You can get it down below in the comments. So get in the comments. There's a link, and it is an affiliate link, which means yes, I get 10% if you do buy yourself one. So get down there and help support the podcast and the YouTube show, whatever you want to call it. And yes, I've got my beer. So Red Moon says no beer. Red and oh dear, Tui. I did have a Tui the other night. Last night, so there you go. But that was just to try and add an extra beer I didn't have already on my Tapped app. Gamification of beer drinking is perhaps not that clever an idea, but hey, I'm enjoying it. So,
well, what have you got for your tipple today, Paul?
My tipple today is a Tuatara Haluva. So there we go. Which apparently is Hell's Lager. So yeah, not a bad drop. No, we're not sponsored by Tuatara, but hey, if you'd like to send us some beer, more than happy to receive it. I promise it will not go to waste. So talking about, so moving on then, some other kind of news. Ikiri and Rieko Ioane. Anyway, Moana. Hey, we're off to. Perhaps we won't go there.
You've had one sip too many.
I've not even had one. It's my first beer of the evening. I've not even tasted it yet. Have we signed for the Blues? You must be happy.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think the media have decided for them that they're signed for the Blues because it's not actually official, is it? Until they sign a contract with the NZRFU, there's no contract with the Blues. Interesting. Obviously, when this came out yesterday, I think it was, and I heard a little tagline on the news on the radio from Rico, and it was along the lines of, well, yeah, Auckland is my home, and it's it'd be great to be able to stay here and play my rugby, but I've got sort of a couple of games to focus on before the end of the season, which is just what I'm focusing on. Now, in the past, a comment like that, where they don't conclusively come out and say, I've signed for the Blues and I'm going to be here for another 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, usually indicates that they haven't signed. So it was interesting when I heard that, and then all the definitive articles that followed to say they've definitely signed for the Blues. So,
well, apparently
he's hoping all the definitive articles are actually 100% correct.
So, well, apparently they haven't signed for the Blues yet. They have verbally agreed. Now, we know how verbal agreements have worked with Chris Piatow in the past, don't we?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, especially in my daytime job, I do have a daytime job. So if you need fibre, give me a call. And not Metamucil, I'm talking about cable. And this is like, you don't make a sale until you've got a PO, purchase order. And I suppose in this scenario, until you've got a signature on the dotted line, and even in that situation, until it's actually received back by the people that own the contract, nothing's a done deal.
Yeah, but with the Rugby World Cup coming up, I think it would take an awfully large contract from Europe to get Rico to or Akiri to move.
Yeah, the thing that we were thinking, and we were just having a chat at the Blues Reds game on Friday night as well with the people around me and Dr. John and Steve-O, in the fact that Blues fans, we want to see a Akira playing in a Blues jumper. But if we're in Akira's shoes, you're sort of thinking, I'm sort of looking like I'm about third or fourth of the pecking order for an All Blacks jersey now. Is it in my interest to stay at the Blues, or should I be looking at another New Zealand franchise that might actually help me to elevate my name and put it in lights to get a black jersey?
Well, it comes down to, let's be honest, to this. I guess there are two sides. We've seen what can happen to players who leave their support networks, suddenly they can fall apart. I'm thinking someone like Zach Guilford, who perhaps has had problems when he went to France the first time, and had to end his and has to end his thing as it comes back when he comes back to the end his contract early and come back to New Zealand because he needed a support network around him. To a certain degree, I think that applies. I mean, Akiri and doesn't come across as being the most mature 20-year-old. So having his support network around him could be very important, rather than so maybe keeping him in Auckland for that reason could be a good idea. So it's not.
Then you can look at the example of Malako Fekitoa, and he leaves the area and blossoms, as have many others that have actually sort of had to stand up on their own 2 feet and actually learn some responsibility without somebody sort of pulling the duvet off them in the morning to get them out of bed.
Well, true. And Maths only forces players should be able to thrive in different conditions. Yeah, but they are, at the end of the day, they are human, just like the rest of us. And you've got to say, at times, it's not. You might want to be thinking about those sort of things rather than necessarily the purely. It's not just purely about the rugby side of things. It is also about the personal ones. Yes, right. Fekitoa, Naholo, 2 great examples of players who have moved somewhere else and done really well. It can also be part of a maturing kind of thing. Nadolo, for example, used to play for Exeter Chiefs, and unfortunately, he arrived, and instead of using his Fiji passport, he used his Australian passport to come into the country, which made him not a Fiji player, but an Australian player, and therefore the Exeter Chiefs got docked 2 points having too many foreign players, because the Pacific Islands don't count. Then, unfortunately, he got at a house party, got rather drunk. The police came round and took him away, and he lied to them as to who he was. Not that clever. And hence, when it came to the end of the year, his contract wasn't renewed at Exeter Chiefs. Now, clearly, he was immature at that point, comes back, ends up at the Crusaders, and turns into possibly the best winger in the world. Fantastic player for a couple of years, and is now over in France doing very well. And is captain of Fiji, clearly respected player within that crowd, within his teammates, and so someone who has matured. So it's not always just about finding your environment, but it's also what state of life you're at as well. So I'm not necessarily sure that it's not necessarily that bad an idea that they're staying there. Obviously, from a coaching point of view, there's some question marks. But I have seen progress in Akiri this year on last year, personally, and I think it's more his headset and his headspace than necessarily the skill set that's the thing for him.
Yeah, I know. It's always been that. It's always been the headspace for him. I think this is pretty clear that the skill set's there. It's just a fact about his game management, effectively,
Yep.
and doing the right thing at the right time.
Going to places like the Blues, they don't have the culture, Christian. Yeah, I agree, Christian, that there's definitely some culture issues at the Blues, but hopefully those improve. So moving on, another article that I saw in the papers was Steve Hansen rebutting some claims that Sonny Bill Williams has become a bit too brittle, and he thinks he's absolutely fine. He'll stand up and be okay. Third injury this season for Sonny Bill. Obviously broke down at the Olympics, joined the Sevens, has had some concussion issues. Do you think he's become a bit of a sort of bit like Dan Carter was a bit brittle, a bit sort of injury prone for a while?
Yes. Look, we talked about it with some mates not so long ago when he after the third test, and it's just like, yeah, look, is SPW becoming a bit glass? So yeah, he's probably been on the sidelines more this season than he has been on the green turf running around.
Yeah, it looks like he's a doubt for the first Rugby Championship Test match. So that's obviously him out for the rest of the season as far as the Blues are concerned, for all two of their really important games that are left.
We're going to the final. Just didn't say what year.
I was going to, or the final of what?
We're going to go to the final and watch somebody else play.
So it was interesting to have a quick read that article, and Hansen saying that these are all impact injuries that he's had, not muscle injuries. So it's not like he's straining things all the time, which makes it, which he says, a bit like Dan Carter. Dan Carter had that period where he was injured and then came back and did fine. Johnny Wilkinson, another player who had like 4 years of injuries, moved down to Toulon, and suddenly the sunshine seemed to, and the sea air seemed to fix him, and he was good for the next 8 years, it seemed like, or however many years it was he was down there. So maybe Sonny Bill's just going through a bad patch in a similar way that Dan Carter went through a bad patch, and he'll come right. We'll have to wait and see. But it's interesting to hear that there were impact injuries, right, which for someone who does boxing, you'd think he'd be pretty good at that kind of stuff, wouldn't you? But anyway.
Not my line. I was going to say, yeah, it's not going to help his boxing career if he's got impact issues. He's going to have to move around the boxing ring a bit better then, isn't he, to avoid the punches?
Yeah, don't hit me, please.
Don't hit me. Yeah, don't hit me. The MMA career's over.
Oh dear, what have I just gone and done?
What have you gone and done?
I don't know. I think I'm back again. Don't worry. It's interesting. Yeah, he does, as you say, he does appear to become a bit glass. So we'll see how much we see of Sonny Bill for the rest of this season. Which, when you think that the All Blacks centre combination is Sonny Bill and Ryan Crotty, that's an awfully shattering.
It's a selfish lineup.
It's definitely a fragile lineup, which is why it's kind of unsurprising that we saw Hansen talking about Goodhue joining the quartet of centres. Now, maybe if your first two only play once every 4 games, then you do need Anton Leonard-Brown, Laumapi and Goodhue all available. It was interesting to see him also name drop Arso and Proctor. So we'll see whether those boys are well, we'll have to wait and see if either those boys get a chance. Vince Arso,
do you know the outlook on Vince Arso? When's he due back?
I don't know, but he's clear. But in fact, both him and Proctor have been out now for a while.
I'm just wondering if I'll see him in a blue and white jersey.
What? Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. Blue and white as in playing for Auckland in the My 10 Cup. Sorry, I've gone and got. I've got to manage to get two things going at once. There we go. Sorry, I muted the playback. Sorry there if you heard that going on. Maths says bring back Smoking Joe. Who's Smoking Joe?
Smoking Joe Stanley.
That's been
before your time.
Before my time, definitely, yes. And talking about before my time, condolences to Mark Irwin's family. The All All Blacks and Otago has passed away. He played at 25 matches for the All Blacks between 1955 and 1961. And being a prop back in those times, unsurprisingly, didn't score any points. Our condolences to him. Someone before my time, so unfortunately I can't comment about his ability as a player. Not someone I'd heard of, but I thought, we should
acknowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't ask me because I'm old, but not quite that old. Unfortunately.
Not quite that old. Okay.
Yep.
So let us know if you like the news section. That's has only taken. I thought it would take the first 10 minutes of the show. It's taken us half an hour to get through the news, which is good. So if anyone would like to would like to sponsor the news section, there is definitely a section. And if you want to do a jingle, we could even have a jingle. It might even go along the lines of.
Defence has been the key to this All Black win tonight.
There we go. And before we move on to the questions or question, if you'd like to support the show, the best way you can do it is to just let all your mates know about it and tell them about it and let them know and get them to come along and watch. 8 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We are live. Monday is always the review show with the weekend's action. Tuesdays is Hash Rugby Chat. Wednesdays the All Black Edition, and Friday and Thursday we preview the games of the weekend. Arsenal, were you trying to talk at that point?
No.
Okay.
No.
And if so do tell your friends, share, and all that kind of stuff would be much appreciated. Thank you. If you'd like to support us monetarily, then there's a number of ways you can do that. If you're watching on YouTube, you can hit the dollar thing at the bottom of the chat and super chat and pay to have a chat, pay to make a comment. We will definitely read out your comment if you do that. And if it's a question about the All Blacks, we'll even answer it. If you're on YouTube, there's some sort of thing called Super Like. Sorry, not on YouTube, on Periscope, some sort of thing called Super Like or Super Heart, which you can do. I've never had one of those, so I don't know how that really works, but feel free. And if you'd like to, you could also become a Patreon of DrivingMaul for as little as $1 a month. Link below in YouTube, and I'll pin a tweet about it on Twitter as well. So, please feel free to support us along those sort of lines. We did have some technical issues yesterday, and I had some guest issues yesterday. We do this because we love it. We don't make a living out of it. We would love to, but this is a totally amateur show. That we do have a bunch of costs, though, around all the software that allow us to do this kind of broadcasting and so forth. So we do have some costs to host all this kind of stuff. So, help covering those will be much appreciated. So, on to question number 1. What's the outlook for the rest of the All Blacks season? Having downed France 3-0, are you all merry, skipping down the street going, we are going to win the rest of the year?
We're going to the final. We're going to the final. Now, look, it's a tricky one because 3-0 against France. If you don't want to be an arrogant All Black fan, then you say that the France team that turned up was a very good team, and the All Blacks were still able to manage a victory 3-0 over them. And be positive on that. It's hard to know what sort of French team turned up, tell you the truth. But yeah, I think it was all good because the fact is that we had key All Blacks out. We've blooded some new players, Carl Tuanaka and I had it before the show, damn it, Carl. And, we've been able to have Jack Goodhue and introduced as well. And, a few other players as well, that have, Scott Barrett, to come into that second row. Obviously Shannon Frizzell getting some time as well. So there's been a lot more upsides than I think Mark Keohane's sort of giving the All Blacks credit for. So no, I think it was a good hit out. It was a good hit out, and it set them up going forward for the obviously be the Rugby Championship autumn, and then setting them up for a shot at number 3, the old three-peat for the World Cup next year.
Because the counter argument to that is that the All Blacks didn't play particularly well, or at their ability. The first 2 games, especially, were given to them by the referee. If we're going to be harsh, or the refereeing decisions definitely impacted the game. So, as I said, the flip side is actually, whilst they won 3-0, they weren't dominating performances. France are something like 8th or 9th in the world. They're hardly the kind of the barnstorming side currently, and actually perhaps they should have put them away easier without the assistance of the ref and with some better play.
Yeah, and that's that sort of seesaw type situation we've got. Is the fact is that did the All Blacks play well, or did France not play so well, and did refereeing decisions make it easier for the All Blacks? So it's a hard one to see. I think the Rugby Championship will give us a better indication. Obviously, as I alluded to, Mark Keohane sort of picking that the All Blacks will come 3rd or maybe even 4th in the Rugby Championship. This is like, yeah, sure, buddy. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's just like based on the winter internationals, the June internationals. Look, I don't think you can base anything on that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I think, look, the positives for the All Blacks, definitely the fact that they've been able to blood some players into that international arena, into that team environment, and they're backing up players. Look, we nobody knows what Dane Coles is going to come back like. But if he comes back as good as he was before, then, again, it's strengthened the front row, with our big mate Carl coming in, who's, didn't look out of place at all as soon as he stepped on the field. And then you've got the likes of Owen Franks and Moody and etc. to come back into it as well. So you've got some strength to come back into that front row. Brody Retallick not even there. I thought Aaron Smith was actually very quiet and probably didn't really have his best series. Maybe he's just a bit too worn out from all that time behind the Highlanders pack. Needs to be refreshed. So, I think that there's positives that come out of that series.
Definitely there are positives, as you say, in depth. You found 2 more props. There is question marks around your 4th lock. You've got 3 that you can happily start with, but if you lose 2 of those to injury, we don't want to go back to the All Blacks in Chicago trying to play Kano as a lock, for example. That kind of situation, I don't think Fafita, to me, is not a starting lock. He's a very good 6, but he's not a 4 or 5. Doesn't quite have the weight for it. So there are who is that 3rd scrum half? There really has been no game time there.
Well, Triple T didn't get any game time, did he? So we don't know.
No, didn't get any game time. And the only person that's had game time as that 3rd scrum half is now playing in Europe, or at least recently. So, there's no one's had any sort of game time for the past, year or so in that role. Again, at fly half, they're probably okay. I mean, Richard Mwanga has only got 1 cap. But definitely looks to be, quality enough to step in there. So that's probably not such the worry as it potentially could be, or so there. The math, go back to study his duties, real life calls. The So, yeah, they have definitely led us some depth. Goodhue came on, was fine, as expected. We didn't really see anyone new in the back three, but hey, do we need to? There's enough players there, depth anyway. And there was another article I didn't pull up and discuss, which said, are there any more bolters to come for the All Blacks? And the answer probably is no. There's been plenty of players played. A series of injuries could see someone like Vince Arso or Proctor in midfield, but it would take 3 or 4 injuries for that to happen. Otherwise, most positions have got they've tried out the depth, they've tried out the players. It's now just a matter of making sure that they're all ready come the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, look, I mean, one player you alluded to there, Damien McKenzie, when he got the start in that final test, he actually did light it up. I think he brings that difference, a point of difference there to that position. I think I alluded to one of the review shows in the fact that the All Black backline, when you had Beauden Barrett starting there, they're all pretty much came across as being much of a muchness, and there was sort of a question mark on whether you needed to actually bring in someone like an NMS to provide a point of difference in the backline. And he plays the game differently from the big boppers. And Damien McKenzie provides that sort of difference as well in terms of those fast feet. So, you know, what they've got in the All Blacks is now with Damien McKenzie playing quite well in that third test, so it would have built his confidence, but, you know, something different if it's required. So that's again, it's great because they've, as we just alluded, we talked about and covered off, we've got new players that can step in. They've got that exposure at that level, and now you've got a couple of players that can give you a different style of play if it's required as well. Yeah.
Just remind everyone, if you want to have any questions that you'd like us to talk about the All Blacks, put it in the comments. We'll pull it up and we'll have a chat about them as well. And looking forward now to the Rugby Championship and the kind of know your enemy section that they have in the Rugby Nation. So obviously we're going to be up against the Wallabies, the Springboks, and the Pumas. The last of those are Pumas. We don't really know what to expect. Really, it has been they were pretty poor about. Christian, stop asking who the guests are. Just show up. You come watch shows. It's all okay. It doesn't matter. You don't have to know who the guests are every time. We're not always that organised as to know who's going to turn up. But I have got at least 2 guests for tomorrow night, so don't worry about that. But looking at the Pumas, the coach has just resigned. So we're not sure what's going to come out of that. They had that poor June series, losing twice to Wales and losing to Scotland, but then they bounced back as soon as they become the Jaguares and win yet again. So I don't think we're expecting much from the Pumas unless Mario Ledesma gets named as the coach. If he does, then it's going to be really kind of interesting to see how he steps up after not that much support. But the All Blacks shouldn't be worried about them. Then we've got the Springboks, 2 wins losing to Wales, beating England twice, and losing to England in the final test. Do you think the Springboks have stepped up, or they don't know who their starting team is? What do you think?
No, I think then, I think a player like Dwayne Vermeulen adds a lot to that forward pack. Winding back the years, and the benefit of Richie McCaw was not just the fact of the player that was Richie McCaw, it was the leader that's Richie McCaw, and the fact that the players, the other 7 in the pack, following his example. And when you look at a Dwayne Vermeulen, that's the sort of qualities he brings. It's not just his own play, but the fact that he lifts the other players around him, and they lift their own performance as well.
Because he is missing the Rugby Championship.
No, that's what I'm saying. So, in the fact is that in the Rugby Championship, he's not going to be there. They need to get someone like Malcolm Marx, who obviously didn't play against England, if I'm correct. and need to get him back as well because they need those X Factor players. You got to at that international level, you got to have those X Factor players. They also played against an England team which, you know, you'd have to say is probably down on a bit of confidence. You know, they I think they had like 100 players not available for them. Eddie was saying, so you know, you gotta take that into account, and so yeah, it's that's why the Rugby Championship will find out where things are at. You look at in Australia, moving on to them, and it's just like
we're not finished with South Africa yet.
Yep. We're not finished. No, yeah, okay. Yeah, go for it, mate.
There's two of us. There's me and you. So the South Africa, yes. To me, I think transformation is he's had to juggle the players, and he's trying to keep the ratio up as well. And I think we saw that. So I think that's question mark as to kind of how much does he need to do that, and how much does he know. How much is he doing that, or how much is it actually that he just doesn't know who his starting 15 is kind of interesting. Is interesting to know. So we'll see how that sort of pans out. It'll be interesting to see whether Willie LaRue is available for the Rugby Championship. I can't remember if he is or not. Obviously, because being European based as well. So we'll see how that pans out. But it's going to be good to see players like Warren Whiteley come back. Now that he's returned for the Lions, obviously he can then also return for the Springboks as well. So they've got players to come back, and they've got lots of choices. It's a matter of settling on the right choices and settling on the right game plan for South Africa, I think.
Yeah, the other thing I was sort of thinking is that their forward pack looks like it's muscled up. I'm not convinced about their backline. Yeah, so I sort of think, you know, you look at a South African forward pack like they played against the English with an Australian backline would look good.
Yep. So a couple of comments from the chats. Were asked by Christopher Edwards Bailey has asked, can Pumas get European players for Rugby Championship? Now, initially the Pumas said they were going to pick the European-based players all this year. And then the first thing that happened was Sanchez went and signed for a European team, and they were like, "How do we hold players to Hagiwaras if we do that?" And so they went back on it. I don't know, and they said they were just going to do it just for the Rugby World Cup year. They seem to be going backwards and forwards. I think whoever the coach that comes in is going to have a big say in this, and that we're not actually really going to know until we come to the Rugby Championship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, it's interesting, isn't it? Argentinian team got the take the blue and white jersey on, put the orange jersey on of the Hagiwaris, and all of a sudden they're a different team. Obviously not playing international.
That's because Hagiwara is playing a black jersey.
Well, I thought they have an orange one as well.
They do, orange, but they're playing in black at the weekend.
Oh, the weekend. And black jerseys, we all know, helps so much with your performance. But, yeah, it's interesting that can happen. And as you say, they get a new coach, and it'll be interesting to see whether they, can, in the Rugby Championship, actually sort of, put the success that the Hagiwaris have had onto the field as an Argentinian side or not. So, questions will be asked around that. Who's the coach going to be?
So Christopher, I think it's going to come down to the coach and what he, how strong he is in his position, whether he wants to or doesn't want to call those European players. I think he'll probably get free rein if it's to do that. Ian Graves also put a question in the chat. As Barrett has been criticised for not being able to direct the back line behind a not dominant pack, do you see DMAC as being able to fulfil that role, or Mwanga as the more adequate replacement?
Yeah, interesting that one, because first of all, it's I haven't heard that criticism of Bone Barrett, and I'm not sure if I actually fully agree with that. I think he is able to he isn't able to get his team going forward or starting to get them back in the right parts of the park if they're going backwards. And when you look at it, those three first fives named in Ian's question, Mo'unga actually is the first five who plays behind a pack that is consistently going forward. The other two, in terms of Bowden Barrett and DMAC, have had packs that have come under pressure, and they have had to, to do the tricks as first five to get their team into the right parts of the field. So, out of those three, I think it's actually Damien McKenzie at a Super Rugby level, because obviously we haven't seen a lot of him at an international level, that's probably done the best job of when their forward pack's under pressure to sort of get them going forward. Although he does have those David Campese moments, as I like to call them.
Yeah, Ian says it's mainly at the Canes that he's had that sort of criticism, and that's what the Canes pack is probably the weakest out of the three packs of those guys play behind. And the other point is, Mo'unga's the most traditional 10 out of the three of them. Barrett and DMAC even more so have been seen as much more running, much more kind of
off the cuff,
much potentially better fullbacks than tens, and playing more of a injecting role that the fullback does, but from 10 sometimes. So Mitch Mo'unga is definitely the most classical replacement if you want to go down that route. But to my mind, that's not what the All Blacks coaches want to do. And we've only ever seen Richie Mo'unga called up into the squad, never into the extended training squad, when there's been injuries. He's never actually got called up
starting
as not even as a starting. Not even. I'm not talking about match day 23 here. I'm talking about the extended training squads here. He only gets called up into those when there's an injury. So the All Blacks clearly don't see him as a long-term player in that kind of role. I think part of doing that is that they see DMAC is that DMAC's where the money is. They're putting money on him, and I think they want to show full confidence in him by not selecting a third fly half. I can't see it as being because Mitch Mo'unga can't do things, because every time he's been asked to do it, he's delivered. So I can't see the Richie Mo'unga's. I don't think it's his lack of capability. I think it's more of we want to show our full faith in DMAC.
In saying that, Mo'unga will be in the World Cup squad. Because I'll take three first fives.
Yep. So the Darren McKenzie clearly can cope. Darren McKenzie can cope with balls, with bad ball, particularly ball that's thrown behind him. He has to scamper around and get it. He's got the elusivity to get away from defenders. Now, behind a retreating pack, I'm not sure his kicking game, his territorial kicking game is one that I would want to back wholeheartedly. He's a decent kicker, don't get me wrong, but
are you talking in terms of accuracy or distance?
A bit of, knowing when and where to kick.
Yep. Okay. Because I was going to say he's actually got quite a big kick on him.
Yeah, I think it's more the kind of decision.
Yeah.
About when to, rather than necessarily. And I mean, Bowden Barrett's kicking has improved, or his decision making around kicking has improved light years in the last 2 years, the last two seasons.
Yes. You're saying last year, in fact, in particular, I thought his positional kicking was actually really good.
Yep.
Look, I mean, I think with your kicking as well, I think, he comes back to, he's just so Campese-like in terms of brilliant one moment, and then what are you doing that for the next?
And one of the things that Hansen has said is that, look, if you want to have that game-changing ability, you do have to live with that you are going to trust them to do it, and you won't, and that they will make mistakes. And Hansen has said, I have to live with that, and I accept having that. I think the upside is worth more than the downside.
Well, the All Blacks pattern of play has always generally been around risk and reward. type scenario. So they're prepared to accept the risk because of the reward outcome that's possible.
Yep. So thank you for those questions, guys.
Just to be fair to DMAC, I have to say, although I keep comparing him to David Campese, DMAC definitely tackles. So I thought I should be fair and put that in there.
So thank you very much for the comments, the questions from the comments. We really do appreciate those as well. Ian's come back. I only said this because particularly the Crusaders Hurricanes matchups have highlighted Mo'unga's capabilities when subjected to line speed and a very good defence. I really don't think that Rich Mo'unga's done anything wrong. I think every challenge he's been set, he's pretty much stepped up to. And we've seen how the Crusaders' attack was stifled earlier this year, and they relied much more on the defence when he was out injured, rather than when he was actually playing. When he came back playing, I think the points scored went back up, and that he really does ignite that Crusaders back line.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
We had a quick chat about South Africa, but we've not talked about Australia yet. Beat Ireland, lost to Ireland 2-1 in their series. Do you think they step forward, or do you think it's an easy let us slow again?
Oh, geez. It's the forward pack. And you look at the second row in particular, and it's just like, it's really is a nothing second row. I'm guessing that old Check is going to take a recording of this now and put it up on the wall in their changing room to fire them up, because that's what they do with us reporter type.
Not only does Hansen and Conrad Smith watch his show, but Chika also does.
Chika. But just to me, it's the second row, and particularly the back row as well. Actually, when you look at someone like a Hannigan on the side of the scrum, and it's just like doesn't really put the fear of God into you, does he? When you got that, I mean, really, what's going for their back for their forward pack is a Hooper Pocock combination, and obviously they're pretty lethal, especially working together. And another massive bonus for them is Taniela Tupo, who's really starting to step up. He's lifting his game, and he's adding some brilliant value to that Wallabies forward pack as well. So they've got some good, but they've got some decidedly average as well, and not even just good, but decidedly average in the forward pack there. And it's a case of whether those decidedly average can do enough to take enough of the workload off your Hooper, your Pocock, and your Tupo type scenario. Because if that's all they've got, then they're going to really find it hard.
Yeah, and it's also you've got to look at the depth and what comes off that bench as well, and that's a real concern.
You saw it. Sorry. Yep, go.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say, you saw it when you saw the Hooper injury in that final test, and I think Pocock got a knock or went off towards the end as well, possibly. I'm not sure on that one, but the impact was huge. Hooper adds a lot to it, so the depth on bench is a factor for them.
Yeah, and you're talking about the forwards there. I was thinking sort of along in the backs. I mean, when we're talking about who's going to replace Will Genia, who's going to replace Bernard Foley. So when you look at Genia, Foley, Beale, Karevi, Flower at fullback, and they've got a couple of decent wingers as well. You've got a good back line, and then you look at kind of who's coming in. To who's coming off the bench. Okay, perhaps we'll leave them on the bench. And as Christian's pointed out, Sammy Karevi is out for the season for the Wallabies as well. Now, they've got Kieran Drani, who on his day is wonderful. Actually, I even put him in to a World 15 to try and compare the All Blacks against the sort of rest of the World 15 prior to the 2015 Rugby World Cup. and that really was and Karevi was who I put in. Not Karevi, sorry. Kirandrani was who I put in at 13. So Kirandrani can be decent, but he hasn't shown it for the last season or so.
And to tell you the truth, I actually don't rate Karevi, tell you the truth. He seems to take wrong options consistently, and he doesn't seem to be that special a player to me. He also missed some crucial tackles in the series against Ireland. So I think that they've got some options in around that centre that they might want to utilise.
Yep, and we'll see who they reach out to now that as you say, Samu's out injured as well. So whilst thinking Australia definitely showed more in that first test. There was a lot of positivity coming out of Australia when the squad was selected. We've also just seen the winning the Waratahs, the team that stopped or that ended the New Zealand Super Rugby franchise winning streak, and the Brumbies have gone and won last weekend as well. So there were definitely some green shoots showing up in Australia, but still, I think a long way to go.
Yep, but effectively Australia summed up by what you said. What's on the bench?
Yep. Cool. And with that, I think we'll wrap things up. So everyone,
I think so.
If you'd like to support the podcast, show, whatever it's, YouTube show, Periscope show, whatever you want to call it, then please tell all your friends. Say 8 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, New Zealand time. That will be live, and also we have some post-match reviews at weekends as well. So look out for those. And if you'd like to support us monetarily, Patreon is the best way. From as little as $1 a month, that would really help. Because I'd like to be able to put this show out on Facebook Live as well, but that would cost me $19 a month. Your support would be much appreciated. Ashwin, how can people get in touch with you outside the show?
You can find me on Twitter at NZFatso, and I'll see you there. Down here.
Yep, down there. There's the thing. So hi, I'm Paul. I'm DrivingMaul. Always up for the rugby chats. Please leave your comments, either YouTube, Twitter, wherever you like. Always up for a good old rugby chat, and I will get back to you. Back tomorrow night with previewing the Super Rugby games for this weekend. I think I've got Steve, and Shane for that one. So you go, Christian. There's who the guests are for tomorrow night. I think I probably will not be doing live post-match reaction on Friday because it's the comedy club night down here in New Plymouth. But I'll be back on Saturday doing post-match reviews. And unless Ashwin decides he feels like doing a post-match review on Friday night, we'll see. So look out for those. And thank you very much for joining us. It's been fun yet again, Ashwin. So superstar, thank you.
Stop it.